Welcome back to the On My Podcast. Today we got an old friend, journalist, used to be in the Navy, my boy Marcus in the building. What's up, bro?
What's going on, man?
It's been a minute, man. It's
been
good
a
to
long
see you.
time. Been about a year, I feel like, since we hung out, really.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
How you been, man?
Been good, man. Been good. How's the pandemic treating you, man?
It's cool, man. I was working from home for a little bit, quit that job. Now I'm working in a grocery store, so same old.
Same old, man.
How about you?
Now I'm working nights, working at UPS till class can be back, in person. We can't really learn over the computer.
Yeah, so where you going to school? What you going to school for?
So I'm going to school for journalism.
Okay.
Mainly trying to be a sports journalist. I was working with the Battlehawks last year before the pandemic shut everything down. So, but yeah, man, once school gets back in, I'll be back on my grind with that.
Okay. So what drew you to journalism?
Really, it was in the Navy. I was in the Navy for 4 years, since 2015 to 2019. And now writing came to me just because telling stories about, or while you're in the Navy, one of the things that you do, because you really don't have your phone, you don't have too much to distract you, is you're really just sitting around with all these people telling stories, right? And like one of my favorite things to do is, go home or go to work, tell stories about my friends back home, and then vice versa, come home, tell stories about my friends in the Navy, right?
Yeah.
And like kind of that sort of holding court, talking to everybody, telling all these stories that, just kind of spreading the word, whatever experience you may intake hearing from someone else, you impart on something else.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed really an outlet for all that. I couldn't just walk around being like, hey, Austin, let me tell you this.
Yeah.
Right? Because I just I had this thought and it inspired me to do this, right? Rather, you just tell people stories in words, really, and give it out to the public and then let people find it where they need to or when they need to, and then being able to look back on it and, kind of revisit it if you need inspiration.
Was the Battlehawks your first journalism gig, or did you have something?
100%. Like I was not classically trained at all. Was mainly Battlehawks were kicking off, and I wanted to get involved with the XFL however I could. I wanted to get involved with the XFL from like the ground floor because I feel it was the new thing around here. It was all home built.
You got a hell of a fan base.
Yeah,
too.
man, and it felt really like this small community, and trying to make my way into that community, into something, parlaying it into, being able to go to the games, being able to be around like all these players and stuff like that. It was kind of that sports fix that I was missing, when a high school athlete gets out and now you're just like, all right, I got all this competitive juice, nowhere to put it.
Yeah.
And and I saw this website, xflnewshub.com. That was kind of the biggest XFL forum, really. It wasn't, classically trained journalists or something like that. It was mainly guys with full-time jobs, but, had this passion for writing about football.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a Battlehawks writer. I saw they had a team they had a guy for every other team except the Battlehawks. And I emailed their editor asking, like, hey, maybe I could send you some samples. I don't have anything published online or anything like that, but I could show you maybe what I can do. Get no response. I email them again a couple of days later, still no response.
You were hungry.
And yeah, man, and it ended up me being just going into a Word document and I would write something up and I would send it to him. And I did that for like 5 straight days, like with no response. And then he was finally like, okay, here's like access to the site, whatever. And it was that easy. That's all it took. It took like a week of me just badgering this dude that didn't really want to listen to me.
That's how so many success stories go.
And next thing you know, I don't really want to brag about it, but I had like the most clicks of the writers on that site. And it was all me kind of mimicking what I thought a sports journalist should be. And then as I wrote a few more, you start to find your own voice. And because of that, I was able to parlay that into working with the XFL podcast that I work with now, which is the STL XFL, XFL STL talk show. And I'm just trying to stick with it till the XFL comes back. Just trying to hold over, tread water for a little bit.
So how long were you writing for the whole season? Or?
I wrote for, well, really the whole season would only be 4 games, but yeah,
that's so sad.
I covered 4 games, and then XFL shut down. But Nah, man, it was one of those things where it was a really good learning experience for me, trying to find, that sort of that pathway into what I really wanted to do.
Hmm.
And so now that it's funny that I parlayed into the producing for the XFL podcast, and now I found kind of what I really want to do is that production side of things, not so much the content as much as like I do enjoy writing, recapping, talking to players, having interviews, all that stuff, but I really found my passion in like the production side of things. Like I enjoy not so much being the guy doing the opinion making, but making sure that everything's palatable. Trying to make sure there's a good video feed, make sure audio levels are good, make sure I can market it, advertising, all that type of stuff.
That's
Sort of
okay.
yeah, not so much being behind the camera.
Okay, that's dope,
Mm.
man. That's dope. You got a future in it.
That's what I'm hoping for, man.
If you was a sports journalist, what city would you want to live in? What team would you want to cover? Let's do it like that.
Team I want to cover is the Raiders, just because I'm a huge Raiders fan. I always have been.
How you feel about them moving to Las Vegas?
I mean, look, I got over it. I was in mourning for a bit. I was thinking, like, I'm not going to be any fan but a Raider fan, like all this stuff. And then they left, and I was like, well, it's a little too late to jump on bandwagons for a good team. I don't want to go relearn the new team's like history and all that. And so I had to ride with them. My dad was still going with him. My grandpa was still going with him. So I was like, all right, I at least got a cave and, see what Vegas is all about.
I felt some type of way they left just because Oakland had that fan base. Like,
yeah, and they still do for real. Like, it's not like I don't know too many people still in Oakland. Like, I was just there on Thanksgiving. I don't know too many people in Oakland that are like pissed off at the Raiders for real. I think everybody knew the Oakland Coliseum was a dump. For like, come on, man. It's like you walk to the stadium, like, and there's like this tunnel with these cages over the top, bro, and it looks like a bird cage the whole walk. It's like the most dangerous place to be in Oakland on a Sunday. Not wearing a Raider jersey.
Didn't the baseball team play there too, though?
Baseball team still plays there.
The Athletics. So they play in the same dump that the Raiders played in.
Yeah,
damn.
That's why you see in like August, like during the preseason games, how they got the baseball diamond in the middle of the football field still. Yeah.
Huh. You seen anybody get fucked up at a game?
Oh yeah. Probably about every game.
They just be fighting.
Yeah, man. My first ever Raider game I went to, it was a Chiefs game, like second week of the season. I was probably like 6 years old. I watched a dude get knocked out, and then they left his head like in the toilet, like but it's like the trough toilets, you know what I'm saying, where they put like the ice cubes and stuff in there. There's like not a urinal, it's like a communal urinal, and they just left him in there. Bro. Raiders games are vicious, man.
Was he like an opposing fan, or was he
Oh
talking?
yeah, he's a Chiefs fan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn, that's how dangerous, boy.
Yeah, bro.
Man, it's so cool. You're a journalist. Like, have you always been a good writer? Or is this?
I mean, so I used to have a really bad stutter as a kid, and so I got sent to speech class, and so it was one of those things where I had to learn to kind of slow myself down, and I try to use words that don't sound so repetitive, I guess.
I run into that problem, yeah.
And my dad was a big stickler on the fact that if you don't speak well, then no one's going to take you seriously. So like me walking around with a stutter and like, a California accent all day long doesn't make me sound too smart. And so yeah, I went to speech classes and had to learn a lot or worked a lot on my public speaking and things that, were sources of anxiety for me. And I guess that's kind of how I turned to the writing side, or enjoying writing and being good at writing, was because the thoughts that seemed so mumbled up in my head were way more easy to put down. And so writing comes naturally to me. Storytelling comes naturally to me, I guess.
You said this got started when you were in the Navy, right?
Well, the actual acting on, like, okay, you can write something down or like tell a story on paper and now maybe put that out for other people to see, not so much just myself. Like I used to actually like kind of like write stories out or like write little plots out like to myself and then never share them with anybody. And so getting over that fear of like, okay, like I got to put my content out here, put my content out there, put my opinion out there for really everybody to see and like disagree with. That all started really after I got out of the Navy.
Okay. How long were you in the Navy?
I was in the Navy for 4 years.
Okay. What was your role? Like, what'd you do?
I was an aviation bosun's mate handler. So basically, what that means is like you ever see the guys on like the commercials or like on Top Gun or something that do the point and like launch the jet off the.
Oh, so you guiding the jet?
Yeah, like
Okay.
that's pretty much what I did. And there's like different variations of that. Like there's like the firefighting side of things, like aircraft firefighting, crash rescue, all that type of stuff. That all falls under that one job. But my job was really like on the flight deck side.
What led you to join the Navy?
So both my parents were in the Navy when I
Uh-huh.
was a kid. They had me young. They got married early, and I spent really my early time of my life being in California while my mom and dad were still in the military. And I got out of high school, was gonna go to Missouri, or did go to Missouri State. Went for a semester, failed horribly.
You were turning up?
Yeah, a little too much. And then I came home, and that's actually when I started linking up with you for the first time
Yeah.
because you and Zach were at Lindenwood,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember telling you guys that I was going to join the Navy, and then everybody was like, "Yeah, but are you really going to go join the Navy?" And so but what it came down to was I wasn't ready for college at all. I was the kid in high school who snuck by well enough on like test scores or whatever. Like I think my GPA when I graduated was like a 2.8, but I had a 29 on my ACT. So that's how I got into Mo State, and
Damn.
yeah, by the time I got there, I was just immature. I had no study habits. I had no drive. I went there as a business major, didn't even know what I wanted to do with it.
Mhm.
I had no real plan or structure in my life. And so I came home, really just kicked it with you guys, just being that dude that went back to his hometown and, hung out with the kids that were actually doing stuff.
Yes.
And did that for about 6 months, man, before I went to Great Lakes in April of 2015. Went to Great Lakes for boot camp.
We're gonna get back to the Navy, but let's
Mm.
talk about that. You said that you weren't ready for college.
Mhm.
And was it like your decision to drop out, or did your parents say like,
No, it was my parents' decision that I was gonna drop out because I was, lucky enough to have my mom who was in a position to be able to actually pay for my school. Like I didn't even have to take out loans.
"Oh, that's
Like that's
amazing."
how easy I had it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because of that, like I took everything for granted. I took the fact that my mom was gonna send me money while I was gone, and I didn't have to work. I didn't have to do nothing but sit around and literally just go to class. That was my only job, was to go to class, and I still couldn't do that. And so because of that, when it comes times for finals to come around, bro, you're not prepared for none of this. Like everybody's been really studying all year, like while people are up in the library till like, midnight, 1 in the morning. What are you doing, bro? You're playing video games. Bro, when Call of Duty Ghost came out, I didn't go to school for a week. I didn't go to class for a week.
Damn,
That's
dude.
what I'm saying. Like that's where I was at mentally. Like I was so immature. And so when, I come home and I'm looking around, I'm like, oh damn, well, I kind of wasted every opportunity I had. And the only option really was, I look at my parents. My mom got her degree after the Navy, went there like straight out of high school. Both my parents left for the Navy at 17. They had to get parents' waivers to even join.
Damn.
And so, yeah, I looked like I
What are the
remember,
odds of that though? Like,
yeah,
did they
right?
know each other before they went to the Navy?
No,
But they both have.
my dad was actually living in Germany at the time
Oh.
because my grandpa was stationed there. So my dad went to high school in Germany and then left.
Hmm.
Mm. And my mom is from New Melly. Yeah, just like out in the sticks by O'Fallon.
So your dad was born in Germany.
No, my dad was an army brat. So my grandpa was moving all over the place. And so my grandpa was stationed in Germany at the time. And I think he spent his early life in the States. And then his high school years he was in Germany.
You really got military in your family.
Oh yeah, big time. That's why that idea wasn't so foreign to me. Like I know plenty of people that I tell that story and they're like, "Oh, I would never think about going to the military." But I was like, it always seemed like it was in the back of my head as something I could do if I really needed to. Like military is always hiring. If you got no direction in life, I promise they'll give you a purpose. I mean, this isn't like my PSA to go join because I mean, shit, I got out after my first contract. But nah, man, it was something I needed. It was something I needed to level myself out because I was just wilding. Like you knew me back then, bro. I wasn't really doing much.
Yeah.
Like I would show up. I'd want to get drunk on the weekends and then fuck around all week, like and just kind of kick it at home and work my minimum wage job I was working at the time, and then don't do anything else. And that's just not sustainable, really. But I wasn't thinking that way when I was 18, 19. I was thinking, oh shit, I got money in my pocket. What do I need to save this for?
Did you feel pressure to go to college after?
100%. It was not to like, and there's not a knock on my mom to be like this, or my dad too. But both my parents were like, oh yeah, college isn't optional. Like you're going, which, I mean, sounds good and can work for a lot of people. But for me, it was just one of those things where my goal was to get to college, and okay, I got to college now. Now I did it. I don't have to do anything else. Like everything else will come as easy as it did in high school, and that just wasn't the case. So like my whole thing was, it was actually a little therapy session now that I think about it. But nah, it was really, the goal was getting there. The goal was not succeeding when I got there. And so like when I finally got accepted into Mizzou and Mo State, I chose Mo State because I knew in my head, I'm like, I'm not gonna get shit done in Mizzou. Like, which now in hindsight, I definitely wouldn't have got shit done in Mizzou. But no, I wanted somewhere that was, decently far away enough that, I wasn't so connected to home, but a place that I could still travel if I needed to. And then all it ended up being was like, I was coming home every other week. And just because I was so homesick and just so used to being back in that like easy little world where I didn't have to, really try hard or like do anything really difficult for myself. And joining the Navy was one of those big things where, there is no backup plan now. Like there's that feeling you get when you get to boot camp and you do like all that first night stuff and you're just like, oh my God, like, yo, there's really no way out of this. I just kind of got to do this right now. And so like, I'm the type of person that I work well when I take away my safety net. And so me having the safety net of being home just wasn't working for me at the time.
It's funny you say that. Like that's part of the reason I moved out. I wanted to have my back against the wall for once in life, to know that like I gotta do this.
It's almost like a weird survivor's remorse feeling when you're like, well, I had this compared to like the kids I grew up with in California. Like if I would have stayed in California, God knows what I would have been doing if I didn't come out here, But I mean, where you look at those kids and the work that they had to put in to get, even with where I was, you know what I mean? And like taking out hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans because California schools are so expensive. And I'm out here, I'm not going to have to pay a single student loan. Well, now the Navy's going to make sure I don't have to pay student loans, which is nice. But, but I didn't have to pay like any money really, like to even go to college. All I had to do was get there and succeed. And I couldn't even do that. And it was one of those things that, starts fucking with you when you get back. And, as much as I loved kicking it with you guys every day, y'all were in college doing shit. Like, what was I doing?
Yeah, the duality of it all. Now we're kicking it, but when you leave,
you're going to study. When I leave, I'm going home to play 2K till 4 in the morning, wake up at noon.
Yeah.
Like, like eventually that starts eating at you. And I'm sure that happened to a lot of people in the pandemic this year. I know it happened to me a little bit.
The suicide rate definitely went up. Yeah. But something I've learned in talking to people is like people who graduate high school, they do feel pressure to go to college. When I'm learning there's so many different alternatives to going to college.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, if you go to college and you're not ready for it, that's thousands of dollars that you have to pay for. And it's just like sometimes some people aren't ready for it. Like you said, you were immature when you first went.
Yeah.
So I don't think you should be like, there's trade schools, there's the military, like military helps you. And there's just some jobs you don't need a degree for. Like,
yeah, that's like, and there's like union jobs, like all you have to do is you just learn a trade. You just become an apprentice and you can learn a trade and you can make plenty of money, not with a college or without a college education. But one of the things I feel like is the issue now, or for this younger generation in general, is the thought that you have to go to college to succeed, period. Like there's no success outside of that. Like obviously you went to college.
Yeah.
But you can still look back and see like how many different ways you could have gone, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But as a high school kid, did you think that way?
Not at all.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like I was so conditioned that like college is what I needed to do. There was no like if I would have gone, if someone would have told me about what the military could have done for me, I would have gone straight out of high school. without even thinking about it.
Mhm.
But because because I was told so many times that I needed to go to college, like needed this education, just go to college, just major in business, you figure the rest out later. Like, all right, cool. Now I'm here with no direction. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm not motivated to really do shit outside of the fact that I want to get yelled at by my mom about my grades.
Yeah.
And that's not enough of a, deterrent for me to just not sit around and enjoy this freedom I've never had before.
Hmm.
But I mean, like, and this isn't me just like shitting on college either. Like,
Yeah.
also it helps out a ton of people, and it puts your foot in the door so many places. Like, there's plenty of obstacles I face now where I'm like, well, I feel like I could learn that job, and they're like, yeah, but the other guy applying for you or other guy applying for it also has a bachelor's. What do you have? You're a veteran. Like, okay, that puts you in, but there's college educations up here still.
The crazy thing about the college degree is every corporate job I've had,
Mm.
they train you on how to do the job. And with the
Mm.
training, they teach you to where anyone who pays attention to the training can do the job. So the college degree just like gives you an advantage over this group of people.
Right.
But at the same time, it's really
So I put it to you this way, right? So I would venture to say probably 75% of the military is 25 and under. Like, I'd say, yeah, that's about right. And maybe not 75, but a great majority of it's under 25. All you have to do to get into the military is take a test called the ASVAB, right? And I would say 50 is probably the average score. It's 0 to 100. And 50 is about the average score. If you get above 50, the amount of jobs that you can do in the military that you would look at, and like, for instance, my job, right? My job, I work with, running aircraft, jets with bombs on them, launching and recovering them all day long, like up to like probably 16 hours a day. All I need is a 35 on my ASVAB to do that job. So like, when you put it in perspective, like the on the job training that you did in the military, like there's no, like, yeah, you go to a school before you go to your first command, and like you actually learn your job from a technical perspective, but you don't do it till you get there, right? All it takes is like a couple months of, like, I could take you right now, you don't know nothing about the military. In a month and a half, I could have you doing the job I did. In a month and a half, just by taking you out there and showing you how to do it. But you know nothing about it right now. So that's where like my disconnect is, where I'm like, why you got to learn something for 4 years to even get in the field when like you have no idea, like, unless there's something I don't know about, like you got no idea anything really about the Navy.
Yeah.
But I could have you not proficient, but knowledgeable enough that I could leave you alone to do that job in like a month and a half. This job working with like billion-dollar aircraft and like, weapons and like running engines and all these different hazards, right? And to prove it to you, I work with plenty dumb motherfuckers in the military, but I still trust them to do their job. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people I wouldn't, like, if I had a kid, I wouldn't let that guy watch my kid, but I'll let him watch this aircraft.
So when you were in the Navy, what was that experience like?
I mean, it's the way I always say it is, I'm incredibly thankful that I did it, and I'm glad I did it, but I'll never do it again. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was definitely a learning experience. I'm a better person for it. I'm a more mature person for it, for sure. But one of the things that I learned the most about it was to stop what I love the term majoring in minor things. And so, for instance, like, not being so upset at shit that doesn't really affect it. Like, would I still be mad about this shit tomorrow when I woke up? Am I still gonna think about this tomorrow? All right, cool. Then it's not really like something I need to worry about. If my chief gets in my face, starts screaming at me, calling me this and that over something that was out of my control, why am I gonna let that, like,
Yeah.
still affect me later in the day when I'm like, well, bro, he's not even thinking about it anymore. If he's not thinking about it, what the fuck I gotta think about it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's just like that patience thing. My bullshit tolerance has gone up so much. Like, like being able to deal with stress and stuff like that. I would say that's the biggest thing that I could take away from it, is being able to deal with stressful situations in a calm way, I would say.
What led to that?
Um, really a lot of things, like, and it really comes down to this deployment I had in 2016, which is I would say would be the turning point of me turning into like not like there was this huge metamorphosis, but I would say I left that as still like the college dropout kid that was, lazy as fuck, didn't really want like wasn't really motivated to do anything. And then I came back and I'm probably more toward the person I am now, which was what that was in 2016, 5 years later. I would say that's the closest I got to like this point. And I mean, to put a long story short, it was 6 months in the summer off the coast of Libya. So it's hot as shit every day. Like working long ass hours, working from dark to dark. So it'd be dark when we got up, it'd be dark when we left. And I don't know, it was just one of those things that built such like a if you can get through this, like you can do pretty much anything. Like the whole I think we were out for like 3 straight months without a port call at one point. So waking up doing your job every day for 3 months, going to sleep in the same place, like it's one of those things where you get this sort of like mental fortitude of all right, I'm so comfortable being in uncomfortability. Like, yeah, I really don't want to do this, but I so have to do this. So I could put myself in a place mentally where like I don't want to do something now, but I know I'm like, well, I did that one shitty thing for this long. Like, what's this? You know what I mean? I'm speaking in generalities, but like you get what I'm saying. Where it's I don't know. And it's also where I learned like the value of leadership for the first time, really, because that was the first. We went on that deployment. I had been out for maybe a month at a time at the most before we did that, and I was in my first real leadership sort of position at the time. I would say I would be the level of like an assistant manager by the time I left, and I came back about a manager. Having to be able to coach people through the same feelings that you're having when it comes to like stresses or like plenty of guys, married with kids, right? You're gone for 6 months. That takes a toll on you no matter what. You're not able to like there's no phone signal so you can't FaceTime your family. So like people are having kids, people's wives are divorcing them while we're on deployment. People's wives are cheating on them or vice versa. People's husbands are cheating on them. Like all this stuff. And you deal with like those own thoughts in your head and those like rumors that you might hear because so and so hit you with this Facebook message and you're out here there's nothing you can do about it, like you know what I mean. And so you learn to manage all those feelings, but also you have to manage your own feelings, but people are also looking to you to be like, all right, how do I handle this? You can't be like, hey man,
Oh
this is
my
my first
gosh.
deployment too, like I don't really know what I'm doing. I really had to become an adult for the first time where I had to be the voice of reason in the room rather than be the dude that could sit in the back and laugh and make jokes, you know? And granted, that's fun and I still like doing it, but I couldn't do it at that point anymore. And so I think that's really what matured me more than anything.
Wow. What was the feeling like of you being, the college dropout and the boat taking off, the ship taking off? What was that first night like?
Uh, so I'll give you the first night of boot camp and I'll give you the first night of deployment. So, first night of boot camp, uh, well, I should really say second night because the first night you don't sleep. So they drop you off on a bus. In our case, so it's in Great Lakes, which is like probably 45 minutes away from Chicago.
Okay.
And I went in April, so it's still mad cold. and but you get off this bus and you walk into like first thing you see is like this big thing that just says United States Navy Recruit Training Command on the front door. And you're walking through, and at this point, everybody's already yelling at you as soon as you're off the bus. And so me being like really the best people that acclimate to that sort of thing are like athletes, right? And like I had two military parents, so I also knew kind of what I was getting into. So I wasn't like really that shook. I kind of expected it to happen, but you're already starting to see people fold. Like as soon as that starts happening, where they're like, "All right, stand on this fucking stand on these footprints right here." And there's like these little yellow footprints, and you would stand there, and then one person would move off that much, and then they're on you. They're like, no, you need to follow these little details, like to a T, right? Like walk on this side of the passageway, or you call it P-way, and walk on this side of the P-way. You can't stray from this one very strict thing. If you can't follow this one strict thing, we're on your ass. And they would do that to you all night, and they just had you like, you're picking up your bags, you're packing everything that you came with, you put in a box and you mail home. And they give you everything. They give you underwear, socks, toothpaste, toothbrush, all that stuff. Everything the government gives you, everything that's on your person, that's civilian clothes, gone.
I may be wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong, but I've heard that like the military trains you to like disconnect and become like
100%. 100%.
Have you seen someone come home and not be able to reconnect?
Yes, and that's a thing that a lot of people don't understand, that just about every veteran deals with, not just veterans of combat. And that's not to say that like combat veterans deal with a different type of like reconnecting, I feel like, when they come home, because you're going from like an incredibly high stress environment and coming home. But it's all right, here, the best way I can put it is there's a book called Tribe by Sebastian Younger, and he did this documentary embedded with these or I think it was Army, but they were embedded in this forward operating base in I think it was Afghanistan. And he was talking about that sort of like tribe mentality, that communal mentality of where everyone gets everyone's jokes, right? Everybody knows the exact beats for everybody. Everybody, I would know what would piss you off by hearing someone else say it to you. I'd be like, okay, he's gonna get upset because he has this in his past and he thinks about this.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this sort of unspoken trust, like I would trust that guy with anything without having to think about it. And then you come home and you kind of see that not everybody has as tight a bond as you had with that person, and you try to connect with like another civilian on that level, and they kind of don't get why you're trying to be too deep with them at that point. Like that's kind of where a lot of people get that disconnect, is because they're looking for that sort of family feeling with their friends again. And some friends may have that, but a lot of people don't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I forget where we're getting off topic with that before.
Yeah, okay. I was just asking about that, but you were telling me about your first night at camp
Oh yeah,
and how they were like ordering you around and stuff.
And so you're getting like all your issued stuff, and that first night they march you in circles while they bring one person out at a time. There's probably a room about the size of 2 classrooms with all these desks put in there. Mind you, the whole time they're telling you you can't fall asleep. At this point, it's like 4 in the morning.
When they get there immediately, we're going to be outside waiting for them, and we're going to start applying the stress right away.
You're to adjust yourselves forward to where your toes are up to and even with that horse.
One of the most intimidating aspects of joining the Navy is the arrival at boot camp. It's your first test in performing under pressure.
Getting them in, getting them to comply, start listening to instruction, getting loud with them, putting them under stress, because from the very, very beginning, we need them to start making decisions and operating under a stressful environment. We'll get them running, we're going to be loud with them, we're going to line up, we're going to start giving them quick orders, quick, fast orders, very specific.
I'm going to ask you as a grown-up, what's your shoe size?
The goal tonight is honestly to get them through a process. We have what boils down to a 4-step process. I'm going to brief them initially, explain the expectations.
You cannot make a phone call right where you're standing on his toe line.
How to talk to us, how to stand, how to act, how to move.
Get off the flag!
And then we're going to get them in a ditty bag issue where they get their initial PT gear. So we're going to get them out of their civilian clothes. We're going to mail them home. We're going to put them in PT gear so they all look the same. We're going to height and weight them, make sure they're in the standards, and we're going to get them in for urinalysis. So that's our mission.
You no longer have personal space. Welcome to the United States Navy.
And they would march us in circles and then take us out for drug tests or whatever, like paperwork we had to fill out. But the whole time you're just marching in circles. And so like you're like delirious, like walking around. Then you go into your actual first day of boot camp the next day, and then you can sleep that night.
So you're just up.
Mm-hmm. And so I remember sitting in my rack like that first night where I actually got to sleep, and I was staring at the ceiling, and I'm like, oh, fuck, man, I got to do 8 weeks of this.
8 weeks of boot camp?
8 weeks.
Damn.
Or I think some places are 12. I think Marine Corps is 12. But you're just sitting there thinking to yourself that first night, you're like, what did I get myself into? Like, if I would have just done this and this and this right. and slowly you break yourself into, and boot camp does a really good job of breaking you down and like building you back up, where it brings it to the point where like I would say it's about 3 weeks in, where you get to this point where you're like, okay, well, I can just put my head down and go through this. Like, it doesn't even matter anymore. Like, I'm so numb emotionally to this yelling that by like week 3, yelling doesn't work on anybody. You're not cracking anybody with yelling anymore because they've been yelled at for 3 weeks. So like everyone's emotionally strong enough to be able to deal with like, okay, I'm putting my socks on. Okay, I'm getting screamed at. All right, it's 5 a.m. I can tell because my RDC just threw a trash can through the middle of the compartment to wake everybody up. Like, okay, like everything's like calm under these stressful conditions. So they do like a really good job of that. And I think that's the one thing the military does better than anything is preparing people for stress, like being able to be calm under stress. Some people still don't ever acclimate to it, obviously, as with any job. Like some people just don't get good at their job. But I would say that's probably the biggest strength I got from it. And then my first night of deployment.
Wait, do you ever build a connection with your commanders at boot camp or?
Not till probably the last week. So you do this thing called battle stations at the end, which is like your last real like exercise that you do like as a group, where you go through like all these like different things. It's like one of those things you can't really talk about what goes on in it, but it's like this whole night full of like simulations, right? And I would say after that is like when you officially like you are a sailor now. Like you're no longer a boot camp recruit. Like you're actually like in the Navy. And that's probably the first time that facade ever really comes down. Still doesn't come down a lot, but like they'll talk to you like you're a person, or they'll stop fucking with you. They'll stop playing mind games. Like when I was in boot camp, they told us that Manny Pacquiao knocked out Floyd Mayweather.
They
'Cause the
lied to you?
Mayweather Pacquiao fight was when we were in boot camp, and so I got out of boot camp thinking Floyd Mayweather got knocked out.
That's just messed
Like
up.
just things like that. People said that because it was LeBron's first year back with the Cavs, and they said that LeBron lost in the first round of the Chicago that year. Like shit like that. Where they'll stop doing that stuff to you. They'll stop playing mind games.
Just
Like
head
the
games.
running joke was always that Jennifer Lopez died. Like just things like that. Where like, but also you look at it and you're like, if me and you were in charge of a bunch of high schoolers, right? And they were completely isolated from the world, you wouldn't do that?
Might as well.
Of course you would.
Might as well.
But it's in that setting, you're just like, oh my god, why are these guys picking on me? Until like you realize eventually, like, oh no, that's just a dude fucking with me.
That's just
like,
them having fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you
Okay.
don't take it personally when you go to boot camp.
Okay. I've always wondered about boot camp. That's cool. But you're gonna say the first night.
First night of deployment was just abject fear.
Wait, so after boot camp, you went straight to deployment? You
No,
got like,
after boot camp, I went to A school in Pensacola, which is just where you learn your job for a little bit. I was there for 2 months, and then went to Norfolk, Virginia, to my first command, which was the USS Wasp. But the first night was really just fear, just because at that point, like I said, like I was kind of in that supervisory role, and I hate being the guy that has to answer questions that they don't know the answer to. Like I hate not knowing something when someone comes to me like for some sort of guidance or anything or some sort of information and I can't give that to them. That gets me anxious. And so it was like imposter syndrome going on deployment, and I've got these young guys that because I left for a deployment probably a year after I got to the boat. So we were sitting around doing exercises really for about a year before we actually went and did an actual mission. And so, yeah, sure, to this guy who's been here for 3 months, like he may look to me like I'm the guy with the answers because I've been here for a year. But in truth, I don't really have that many more answers than you do, bro. So like we both got to learn this on the fly. And so it was that sort of like anxiety of like, okay, what if this aircraft catches on fire and I don't know my job in order to put it out, and I give someone bad information and then that person ends up hurt or killed. Like that's like the thing where like I got anxious about that first night. It goes away after like your first real flight ops when you're on deployment. You're like, oh, it's not really that different than anything I've been doing. But it's just one of those things where you get like a sort of anxiety knowing that people are actually in your care now. Whether you like it or not, whether I wanted to admit that I could just look at them and be like, well, no, that's just my coworker. I'm just telling him what to do. But like in the reality of things, that dude's going to do what you do regardless, or do what you say regardless. So make sure that you come correct when you have to tell, like, hey, I need you to get on this fire hose, go to that hose team, move in from this angle, get behind this bomb, you need to put water on this bomb because this cooks off in this sort of time. Like, if I don't know the cook off time, then you know that 10 seconds before he can put water on it, it might go off, you know? So you got to know your cook off times for every single missile that, you know, this plane might be having. It's just things like that where it's that information that you got to keep in your head and like be able to keep a level head if shit ever were to hit the fan.
How long did it take you to adapt to living on a ship?
On the ship, you never really adapt.
That's wild to me.
But I would say first night that I could get really a good night's sleep, a month.
How big is this ship?
So I know our flight deck is 844 feet long, and that's pretty much the further or most forward and most aft that you can get. So about the size of a football field, or 300 feet of football field. So.
Whoa! So it's like 3 football fields, essentially.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, and
How many people were on the ship?
About 4,000 at a time. I mean, I know our flight deck division, we probably had 40, and that was just one division. We had 4 divisions just in the air department. So do what you will with that. But about 4,000 people when we're fully loaded.
All right, let's talk about the positives. Like, I imagine you got to travel the world.
Oh, absolutely. I've been to Spain. I've been to Greece, Brazil. I lived in Japan for 2 years. Yeah, and I've been to Singapore. Like, yeah, it's been awesome.
So, do you still live on the ship when you go these places, or do you?
Yeah, and so there's it can be a bit of both. So my first, I would say 6 months, I lived on the ship, went to sleep on the ship every night, even though we were in port, because I didn't have a place to stay, like in town. And then after that, we rented a house. Me and a couple guys like went in on a house, and then paid out of pocket for that. But once I got to Japan, they gave us like pretty much a college dorm. And so like I had a roommate, and then there was a room over. We shared a bathroom, pretty much the same setup as Lindenwood. And so that was free. We got free housing for that. But also, if you were like a certain rank or above, or if you were married, which is why you see so many military marriages at a young age. If you're married, they'll pay for your housing.
Oh.
So that's why you see all these kids that are like 18, 19, 20 being like, okay, I'm getting married. Which, in hindsight, that never works out. Like, I'm trying to tell you guys, very few of them I've ever seen work out. I can count on one hand, probably.
What was it like being in these different countries?
A lot of them really give you an appreciation for the States, and a lot of places make you hate the United States. Like, for instance, Japan, right? I lived there for 2 years. I never once got an order wrong.
What does that mean?
Like, if I went out to eat and ordered food, never got it wrong for 2 years.
Ooh.
Like, things like that. And, like, the customer service and, like, the just overall respect that everybody has in Japan. Like, it's so ingrained in their culture. Like, for instance, like, they always respect their elders in their culture. Like, that's not, like, a stereotype. That's really true. So, for instance, if your parents become the age that they should be retired and shouldn't be living on their own, you don't put them in a nursing home. You put them in your home, and you take care of them. Or say you get in a car accident, right? Whether it's your fault or not, if that person's hurt, it's customary that you pay for their medical bills because they're the one that's in pain. Like, things like that. But also, it's incredibly strict. Like, for instance, the DUI limit, I think, is 0.03.
So you can't drink and drive.
You can't. And if you drink and drive, you're going to, like, prison, like work camp. Like, you're going to go out there and break rocks for 12 hours and come in.
Okay.
And so it's because there's also, like, that it's so punitive over there. Like, there's plenty. I think there was a stat that American armed forces in Japan is, like, less than 5% of the population, but accounts for, like, a majority of the crime. Like, that's the disparity that you're working with there. And it's like military people who you would think is like, oh, you're so disciplined. They're supposed to like, be doing the right thing all the time. But I promise you, there's a lot of dumb motherfuckers that were in the military. Like, I was one of them. I did plenty of wild shit when I was in, but like, a majority of a country's population almost is, U.S. Like, we would, you'd hear a story, and they would lock down the whole base too if it happened. So, for instance, in Okinawa, I think it was like this Marine got drunk, stole a cab, and I think he stabbed the cab driver. And because that happened, no armed forces in Japan could drink alcohol for a month, and everyone was restricted to base. You could not leave base because of something some guy in Okinawa did. Because that's how fragile that relationship is, because the Americans are fucking up so much over there.
Why are we over there?
So that's a whole other can of worms. It's called like the Status of Forces Agreement. And pretty much after World War II, because the Japanese Army and Navy got so out of control, what the Allies did in the treaty was basically said, all right, you guys can have, it's called the NDF, the National Defense Force, which is this very limited, like, kind of pseudo-military that's under our control, that we tell the NDF what to do. And we will put our bases in your country and kind of act as your security, but you guys can't build an army up again because the last time you guys did that, this happened.
Oh.
And so that happened from that treaty, and that's why we're still there today.
Do they treat you right and everything?
They do. I mean, there's obviously, you have your detractors, like, with everywhere. I mean, there's people out here that don't like the military because they think it stands for something else. But, I mean, for the most part, like, Japanese people treat us great. Like, I've never been outwardly wronged by any Japanese person, like, in 2 years. But, I got in, arguments and fights with people on the base all the time.
Yeah.
But I'll go out in the town, no one would mess with me. Like, they were just incredibly nice people. I love it out there. I love the culture so much.
What kind of food do you eat out there?
I mean, they do a lot of Americanized stuff. I mean, they think Americans love mayonnaise, so they put mayonnaise on everything. I would, like, you have to outwardly go out and tell them, like, no mayonnaise on stuff. Like, for me, I hate it. So I would be like, yeah, no mayonnaise. And they'd be like, okay, some mayonnaise. I'd be like, no, no mayonnaise. But, I mean, the food's great. There's like a lot of these little steakhouses where you cook the meat at your own table. So you actually have like a little grill in front of you.
I think I've seen restaurants like that.
Yeah, no, that stuff's really cool. I mean,
you got to season it too?
I guess, yeah.
That's a lot of work. What are they doing?
Almost like, what are you paying for?
Yeah.
But no, I mean, there's a lot of experimental food out there that I had to try. I'm a real picky eater. So
you eat sushi?
I love sushi now.
Was it good out there?
Oh yeah.
I bet that shit was fresh.
But too. It was like, but it's so fresh, but it's also so simple. Like, you come to the States and you see like all the like toppings and all this stuff on there. They don't do that over there. It's so simple, but it's so fresh that it like the fish like almost melts in your mouth. Yeah, my mouth started watering.
Oh man.
But but nah, and I mean, they still got like your McDonald's, your Subways, there's KFCs out there, Taco Bell's out there.
What was Brazil like?
Brazil was we were only there for 5 days. I think it was 5 days, but it was an experience because you see that big. This is where I talk about like things that make you miss America. So we were able to go. It's called Liberty, pretty much, but it was just like when we were off work. We were able to go to like this strip on Copacabana Beach, and that was like it. They were like, "Do not go anywhere else unless you're going to the Christ the Redeemer statue," which we did. But
the big one like that.
And so Copacabana Beach was like pretty much like Miami, almost. That's what it felt like. Like everyone was upbeat, happy, chilling, like having fun. And then, driving to the Christ the Redeemer statue, you drive through like all those like favelas, right? Like that's what, because it's at the top of the mountain, and so you're driving to the top of this mountain, and you're looking out. You're just seeing all these houses stacked on top of each other, exactly like the Call of Duty map, bro.
That's what I was thinking of.
And like it gives you a sense for like, god damn, like there's all this like richness and prosperity over here, but you take a 10-minute drive and it's like poverty like I had never seen like with my own eyes. Like, yeah, you see it on TV, but till you actually feel it, till you smell it, till you like really see like real life people. Like that guy's not in a TV screen. That guy's really like got 3 people on his moped right now. Like shit like that where you're just like, oh wow.
They ain't doing that shit for fun.
And I'm just here like visiting. Like I'm just passing through. And they're probably looking at me like, fuck that guy. But I mean, that's like their everyday life. And you realize that a lot of like I'm looking out and there's probably like 1 million plus people that like from my view of the mountain, probably like 1 million people. And so many of those people are just gonna have zero chance. And so it makes you like really appreciate when you come home to the States and there's like a lot of things that like obviously this country is far from perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But where you sort of have that kind of pride in your country a little bit more, like no matter how pissed off you may be getting at like whatever's going on in the political world, there's still like is that sort of American dream hope that you can have. Like with this podcast, right? Like you have a hope that this can like be something, like be something big and like prosper. But like so many of those people just got no chance, especially in the modern world.
That's real.
I mean, really, and it's a lot of things I didn't think about until I left the Navy and like really sat down with my own thoughts and like, cause at that time I was worried about like, yo, let's go get fucked up somewhere and go have a good time and party. We're in Brazil, like I'm not trying to depress myself. Like I'm in Rio, like let's go to a club.
Did you turn up?
Oh yeah, and it was fun and like. Those people have a great time and it was fun everywhere we went. Like Singapore was the same way though, where it's like that disparity of like the uber rich and then like the migrant society. Because like Singapore, I don't know the exact split, but it's like a split between like British people, the Muslim population, and Indians. And like it's like those 3, and I think Chinese as well. But it's like those 4 populations and then like they're so like class divided. Like class division is so real in other places.
Yeah, people
like systemic racism is so real in other places.
That's just crazy. There's so many wars that have been caused in other countries just because of like classes.
Yeah. I think I had been on 3 continents before my 21st birthday. And it's just one of those things where I look back on it and I was like, I really didn't appreciate it when I had it. But so many life experiences that you get just from doing it. Like, obviously, you look at it and you're thinking nothing more than just like, oh, I'm partying. Like, I'm out here, international balling pretty much. But the things that you see don't register with you until you leave. Or like until like you come home. And you're just like, huh, okay. I'm so used to, like in Japan, like little things, right? So it's disrespectful to hand something with one hand in Japan, right? So like if I were to hand you this lighter, I would do it like this. With 2 hands. But don't take it with 1 hand. You got to take it with 2. Yeah, something like that. Or like you go to a checkout counter and you put your card in this little basket and you push it over and she takes it from the basket and like handles it gently and then gently puts it back in the basket and hands it to you. Like things like that where you're so used to like these norms of one place that coming home kind of feels weird.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's like, but I could still think of all those things like off the top of my head, and like I still catch myself doing some things reflexively, like doing that after you talk to somebody. Like,
yeah, you lived there for 2 years, so you were acclimated.
Mm-hmm. I was super acclimated to it, and I would come home, I'd be pissed off that everybody was rude all the time. Like, but yeah, and yeah, man, I love Japan so much. I would love to go back there. I wouldn't live there again, but I'd go back there for sure.
I just got one last question. Were you on the ship when there were any big storms on the ocean?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I think, what year did Hurricane Harvey happen? That was right before Brazil. So Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Maria happened, and we were in transit. We were going from, our home port was shifting from Norfolk, Virginia to Sasebo, Japan. So we had to go around the southern tip of South America and around the back and then go to Japan, and that's where we were going to station from then. And Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Maria happened, and we were right there, like by Puerto Rico. And so we had to do hurricane relief efforts for a few months. And yeah, that's another one of those things.
Oh, I bet that was bad, sad.
Yeah, and yeah, but those storms, like during that time, like you talk about. So the term sea legs is very real. If you don't have your sea legs, like it's hard for you to walk around the ship. Like you kind of get used to the motion of everything, and it's actually kind of funny because when you come back from what we would call an underway, anytime you go out to sea and come back, you kind of walk funny on the ground, on solid ground, because you're so used to like, and your legs are so toned because all day you're just pushing back and forth. It's like you're pushing on a gas pedal and pulling back because you're just trying to like stay upright. Like the worst would be working out in the gym. Like you're trying to bench and then the ship dips down. And so like now this thing just, and then you kind of like gotta like time it like with the way up. But yeah, it's also the best sleep you'll ever have.
Rocking.
I would say. Yeah, because it's like you're rocking in a hammock all
bet.
night. I mean, people have rolled out of wrecks. I've seen that. Like you've got pretty much a bunk bed with an extra bunk on top, and there's these straps that you have to put on if you're in the top rack, and if you don't put them up, you can roll out. Like I remember this one kid. He was like brand new. Man. He was like 18, and I think it was my last underway, so I was like already like tired over this shit. Like, and he like fell out. I watched it happen. I was sitting there. I was watching a movie on my phone in my rack, and he just rolls off the top because the ship hit a wave, and bro, he smacked it because it's like cement floors. And so he just smacked his shit, and I just lean out. I'm like, "You good?" He's like, "I fell out of my rack." I was like, "Yeah, you better put your straps up and shut my shit." Like, I was like,
I'm done.
And but no, man. Being out on the ocean like during the storm though is pretty cool. Launching and recovering helicopters is not very cool. When it's rocking and shit like that. But nah, it's one of those things that makes it fun almost. Like that danger element. When that's the other thing, right? So your job may seem super cool to like other people. Like you've seen videos of me like doing that stuff, right?
Yeah, you be out there.
Yeah. And so like that may look really cool, like on video, but I'm so bored in the video, like because I'm so used to doing it. And so like you kind of almost need that sort of like crazy dangerous thing to like really get you back into like, oh, okay, like
Oh
this
yeah.
is fun. And so like yeah, like okay, a little sideways rain. I got to bring in this 53, which is like a helicopter pretty much. Or it's like a bus with a giant rotor blade on top. That's pretty much what it looks like. And so you're like getting this wind like whipping in your face, and like the rain's like going all over the place. You're like, okay, this is kind of fun. Let's get my blood rushing a little bit. But nah, man. Storms are fun out to sea. I do love me a good storm.
You ever see sharks or whales
All
or?
the time. We had a pod of dolphins follow us after that 2016 deployment. So we went from the Middle East up into Europe and then across the Atlantic. And there was like this pod of dolphins that like followed us almost like from Europe all the way to the States. Not all the way, but like they followed us for a few days.
What?
Yeah. Stuff like that is like really cool when you see like real wildlife. Like we saw penguins. Saw penguins in the bottom of South America. Like when we passed around
They're just chilling.
yeah, they were just swimming, popping up. Yeah,
You
man.
probably saw sea lions and stuff.
Oh yeah, but I mean I'm from the Bay Area though. So
Oh,
like,
yeah, that's foreign to me.
Yeah, no man, it's a bunch of wildlife. Saw whales, all that stuff. Sea tornadoes, those things are cool.
Sea tornado.
Yeah, I don't know what their like legit name is, but yeah, it's a little tornado on the water.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's like just cool stuff.
You seen some big waves?
I never saw anything too crazy because they wouldn't have us go through it. So we would purposely maneuver outside of storms and all that until pretty much. So sailing out to sea, like there's all these little grids, and so you would have to have permission to go into each grid. So you would go into a holding pattern in whichever grid until it was time to go to the next one. And so they would purposely chart out our path so that we would get out of the way of like crazy storms. But I mean, there were still some that if the waves were too high, they wouldn't let anybody outside the skin of the ship. So they would hatch down everything, and then like yeah, you'd see water like going over the top of the flight deck. Mind you, like this thing's huge.
Yeah.
Like, you've seen how big like carriers and shit are. But
that's wild water getting up that high.
it's because the dip, and so it just slaps at the bottom, and the wave crashes over the top.
Gee, you ever deal with pirates?
No, we did. Well, we did like anti-piracy operations, but we never like did like any of the Captain Phillips shit. Like no, but my ship was in Captain Phillips in the actual movie.
That's your ship.
At the end when it's pulling away, that's my ship.
That's dope.
Yeah, but nah, man, I didn't get to do any of the cool Captain Phillips shit though. That would have been really cool.
Before we wrap this up, I know you working on a podcast.
Mhm.
Let's plug that podcast.
Yeah, so it's gonna be with me and my boy Juan Herrera. Once hopefully all this COVID stuff dies down and we're able to be around to actually really collaborate with each other again. It's gonna be called In the Clinch. It's gonna be an MMA podcast, kind of going like gym to gym, learning or really just trying to educate real fight nerds. It's built for fight nerds. It's not really built for like people who are like casually into it, but like if you really are into a certain martial art, we hope to tackle that martial art and kind of do a deep dive with someone who actually practices it at a high level. Also, the XFL STL talk show Wednesday nights on Facebook Watch at 7 Central.
How's that going?
It's going good. It's going good. We're just trying to, stay afloat, trying to keep the XFL news pumping until we can really get back to 2022 when they're supposed to kick off.
Okay.
And then, yeah, man, just thank you for having me on again.
It's been a blast, man. We got some good content. It's a blast.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it, bro.
No problem. I appreciate you pulling up, bro.